And if you could please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Today's luncheon is sponsored by Pacific Crest Planning, and their sponsorship includes the opportunity to speak to the group about their organization. Representing Pacific Crest Planning today is their managing partner, Todd Halterman.
Well, good afternoon. Oh, come on. Good afternoon. That's better. Anyways, I want to say thank you to the Chamber for allowing us to speak today and really review what's going on in the community. You know, everybody in here at one time has experienced insurance at some level. Some of that's good and some of that maybe not so good, right? But Pacific Crest was born about 10 years ago, actually, November of 2002, on a premise of everybody's tired of buying products and services. They really have needs. And so our firm 10 years ago was founded on the premise of open architecture. Everybody in this room buys insurance, has financial planning or investment management, or has employee benefits or health insurance. So our company is focused on bringing innovative solutions to the community, not centered on product. But how many of you get your renewal notices for health insurance or employee benefits, and you're feverishly for the month before your renewal trying to figure out what plan is best for your organization? Or maybe it's a renewal in insurance and you're trying to compare your old policy to your new policy and figure out what's all this language mean. Or with investments, you're wondering why 10 years later you're still not making any money. Do those resonate with anybody here? Our firm, if you look at the brochures on your table, we focus in three major areas for business owners. The number one item is to make sure that your employee population and your business is healthy and happy. The challenge today is the cost environment of insurance, especially health insurance, has become very, very costly for employers. So we come in and try to introduce innovative solutions to folks for their needs, not quoting policies. If you're in the business of quoting policies, you need to get out of that. In financial planning, we do it through open architecture. That means you get to see everything, understand it. We work with a lot of the larger employers in the area and help support them as a consultant, not an insurance broker or an investment broker. Those of you that don't know it, health insurance is an interesting tool, and I'll lead with that because it seems to be a big topic for a lot of small businesses. Every year you renew your insurance, you're looking at it saying, geez, my cost went up 15%. Does that sound familiar? How many of you employers would love to be out of the health insurance business and just stay in the benefits business, telling people, hey, listen, what if we had a program where you could just decide on your annual budget per employee, and each employee could pick their own benefit package from a suite of options? Would that make your renewals easier? Or how about an opportunity to give your employees a Visa card that has all their electronic medical records on it, so that when they go to the doctor or the hospital, they give the card to the hospital, they put it in a scanner, and within 1 minute, their clipboard is filled out. They don't have a clipboard to fill out anymore. So I would really encourage you to understand how Pacific Crest works, is we're a consultation firm first. And then through that educational process, we help people understand and deliver bottom line results without buying a product, so you understand what suites are out there. But if you're tired of being in the health insurance business or trying to understand insurance in general, that's what our team does. If I could just have my team stand up from the office today. This organization, Kyle Blodgett, Ryan Sullivan, Don Jeffries, Justin Toner, Matt Henderson, Jolene Johnson. At our firm, we have 16 people. I can tell you we're involved in 42 different philanthropic opportunities in the community where we support different charities because of things like this. And we hope that we have an opportunity to visit with you and your operation. But if you want to take care of employees, reduce your bottom line, and get out of the insurance business, or quit wondering why you're not making money in the investment world, let us come in and visit with you for 30 minutes. I think you'll see a difference. So thanks for having us.
Thank you, Todd, and thanks to Pacific Crest Planning. You know, we've kind of watched this business grow, and we're awfully excited for you and appreciate your sponsorship today. At this time, I'd like to introduce John Crook, the chair of our board, to lead us through the rest of our program. John?
Thanks, Lori. And thank you, Todd. Those were great comments. And I'm just, so what you're saying is good health is good business, right? Well, what a great tie-in, because we're one month away from our Good Health is Good Business program next month, with John Rode kicking that off for us, and I hope we'll see everyone here for that. It's going to be a great and exciting event, and hopefully an exciting late summer and fall with our challenge there. I'm a wine nut. My wife would probably tell you that's a bit of an understatement, but actually a little moderate wine consumption is good health as well. So I'm very excited about today's program, and I see some fellow wine nuts in the audience today, so we're really glad to have people from the industry and wine lovers from the Tri-Cities here. And I don't want to delay things any further other than to say that Benjamin Franklin said that wine is constant proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. And I think it's fair to say that the Tri-Cities is a pretty happy place to be as a result. So with that, let's bring up Camille Kellison to introduce our new members. Camille? There you are.
Good afternoon. Today we have some outstanding businesses to introduce as new chamber members. As I read your names, please come forward to receive your membership plaque. Please stand at the front until all names have been read. Leslie Hilton Smith with Blue Dog RV. Provisional Recruiting and Staffing, Marissa Romans. Oasis Physical Therapy, Diane Crawford. Rex Ayers with the Sand and Sage Car Club. And Chandra Knowles with Bookkeeping Express. We're going to have a photo opportunity here real quick. So please join me in welcoming these new members to the chamber. It's exciting to see so many new members join the chamber, and it's also exciting to see many of our long-term loyal members renewing their chamber memberships for over 20 years. While they may not be here today, we'd like to acknowledge their dedication to the chamber. Their support allows us to provide programs that strengthen our local business community. These businesses renewed their memberships in May. Kennewick General Hospital, Country Gentleman Restaurant and Catering, Central Premix Concrete, Key Bank, Bank of the West, Tri-Cities Battery, McDonald's, Columbia Industries, Moon Security Services, Bennett Rentals, YMCA of the Greater Tri-Cities, Reddick Osborne and Forget, Rogers Surveying, Clayton Ward Company, Overturf Motor Company, Arlene's Flowers, Sport House Northwest, CKJT Architects, EA Curtis Company, Rhodes Heating and Air Conditioning, Granite Construction Company, Wandrak Distributing, Tri-Cities Water Store, Coldwell Banker Tomlinson Roy, Beckons Moving and Storage, and KFFX Fox 11. If you have a business that you would like to nominate for chamber membership, or if you're a guest interested in information on membership, please see me after the luncheon. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. The Washington State Wine Commission represents every licensed winery and every grape grower in Washington State. Guided by an appointed board, the Commission provides a marketing platform to raise positive awareness in the state of Washington and of the industry, and to generate greater demand for its wines. Funded almost entirely by the industry through assessments based on grape and wine sales, the Commission is a state government agency established by the legislature in 1987. Steve Warner joined the Commission as executive director in February of this year. He came from Merck & Company, Inc., where he was managing director based in Bucharest, Romania. Prior to that, he held general manager and marketing positions in global and regional marketing in the Asia-Pacific region, and led teams while living in Seoul, South Korea, Bangkok, Thailand, and several domestic markets. Mr. Warner holds a bachelor's degree in biology from East Tennessee State University and a master's of business administration in an international business and finance from Rutgers University. Born and raised in Washington State, Mr. Warner graduated from West Seattle High School before serving in the United States Military's Special Operations Command, first as a sergeant in the U.S. Air Force and then as a lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy. Please help me welcome Steve Warner.
Wow, what's a wine guy from Romania doing here? You know, it's like, wow. No, thank you very much to the Chamber for the invitation to speak today. To be honest with you, this is one of my favorite things to do, is to come out and spread the word about the Washington State wine industry. Mainly not just the wine itself, but the people behind the wine is what I get really jazzed about. But before I get started, I actually want to comment on the Pledge of Allegiance. I spent 23 years in the military, and that was awesome. That was really awesome. I got goosebumps. So that's probably the first time since grade school that I actually did the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, pretty cool. So I am Steve Warner, and I am born and raised in Washington. I did graduate from West Seattle High School, but I actually grew up in Cleolum and Roslyn. And if anybody's ever heard of the Brick Tavern, has anybody out there heard of the Brick? All right, my mother owned the Brick. Yeah, so that's my, thank you very much. Let me tell you, it was something else being part of that history, being the oldest tavern in the state of Washington, and then everything following that. It was pretty cool, but I have to tell you, as a young kid, I spent my entire summer filling the basement of the Brick with wood and coal. That part wasn't cool. So that thing only ran on a furnace that we had to feed all winter long. Let me just get started. Now, we talked a little bit about what is the mission of the Washington State Wine Commission. It's not to sell an individual winery's wine, but it is to raise the awareness of Washington State wine. Coming from overseas, living overseas, and living all over the states, when you tell people about Washington, they think Seattle, they think Starbucks, they think Boeing, they think rain, they think all kinds of different things. They don't think wine or premier wine growing region. When I'm overseas, you say Washington and people think automatically DC. So there is a huge opportunity to raise the awareness of Washington State as a tourism destination, a wine tourism destination, but also as a premier wine producing region in the world. And I've got some great data that I think you're going to be pretty excited. And the only thing that I ask you is that you get behind this data, that you're proud of the data, that you visit the wineries, you pat them on the back, and then you tell two people. Because I'll tell you up front, one thing that really got me excited from a bad perspective of taking this job is within our own state, we only have a 30% market share within our own state. But yet we make, and I'll show you the data, some of the best wines in the world. So everyone go out and tell two people about the data that I'm going to share with you today. There is also, as you see, a research component of that as well, and I'll go into a little detail. So we do represent about 700, it's roughly about 750 wineries. We also represent about 350 growers. We're about 45,000 acres. And to put that in perspective, California's over 1 million acres of growing, of producing area. We're about 160,000 tons. Now this is, some of you out there will go, wait a minute, we're not 160,000 tons. This is 2010 data. 2011 we had a bit of a dip. But from what I'm told so far, barring any sort of challenges in the growing cycle, we're probably going to exceed the 160 this year. So we're off to a really good start. Now, just to give you a sense of how quickly, now I call it a brief history, because if you put Washington State in perspective, we're infants, we're newborn babies in the wine world. But we have had phenomenal growth. 15 years ago, we had 100 wineries. Now we're over 750 wineries. And that continues to grow, even during the worst part of the recession. A lot of people don't really understand how the commission, we are a government agency, but we're actually funded through assessments. And the assessments are about 1.2 cents per bottle. So if you're a 1,000-case winery, you're paying about $140 or $142 in assessments. To put that in perspective, a cork for a bottle runs anywhere from about, on the low end, in the mid-20s, to on the higher end, around $1 per cork. I was out talking to Bob Betts the other day. He pays 73 cents for a cork. So just in perspective, the 1.2 cents compared to that funds us for our marketing budget. We also do get grape assessments. It's about $10 a ton for the marketing budget. That breaks out to be about half of a penny per pound for these assessments. And then the third way of funding is for our export program. We're trying to spread the word globally because we want to be known as a premier wine growing region in the world, and we want to draw people to our region. So we do actually apply for and we do receive export grants from the USDA. So that's the third form of funding. So all of our overseas activities in Japan, for example, in Taiwan, where we've done events before, and in October I'm going to Korea because of the free trade agreement. I'm going to Korea with the governor on a trade mission and Director Newhouse. That's all funded by export grants, not assessments. Now, one of the things I get really excited about is this data here. Now, this is data from Wine Spectator. And if you don't remember anything else from my presentation, please remember this part. For the last 3 consecutive years, Washington State, as a percentage of 90-plus rated scores from Wine Spectator, has outperformed Oregon, France, Italy, California, all those, Spain as well. I just couldn't fit Spain on there. So we have tremendous quality wines being produced in Washington State. And if you look at the lower part of that graph, you'll see that those same wines, the cost per 90-plus rated wine, is actually on the lower end. So the average price over 3 years was $42 for Washington wines, whereas you see at the bottom, France, for that same 90-plus rated wine, was $91, or California, $70. So on the one hand, we make awesome wine. On the other hand, it's affordable. And I think that's a key message that people need to understand. So when you go to that wine store, you go to wherever it is you buy wine, I ask you to make one decision or ask one question. Where's the Washington wine? You won't go wrong. You know, these are slides that I actually stole from Bob Betts. I just added them today. I'm not a growing expert at all, but these things really resonated with me because people often ask, why do you guys make such great wine? Well, it actually starts with the fruit. And at that point, it's up to the winemaker to not screw it up, really, and to really make it even better than the fruit could possibly be. Part of the reason, and there's many, many factors. Everyone's heard of terroir, for example, which is what really is the essence of the wine-growing region, including the soil and everything. But there's 3 or 4 slides I threw in here to give you some perspective on why we produce such great fruit, what goes into making such great wines. One of them is our latitude. We are actually, if you look at this graph, you can see over here we've got Burgundy, we've got Bordeaux, we got Northern Rhone, Southern Rhone, and that's pretty much aligned on a latitude basis with our Columbia Valley, for example. Another reason is we actually get a lot more daylight in the summer solstice. So for example, you'll see here we're up around 45 degrees north, so you can see that we get more sun than the equator and also 38 degrees. So in the summer, during the prime growing period, we actually get a lot more sun. And then the average hours of daylight, this is comparing Napa to Bordeaux to Columbia Valley. You can see in the key growing time of June through August, we get more sunlight. You can see 365 hours of sunlight for Napa compared to 390 hours for us. So we get this great growing period of where we have great fruit development, and it's related to where we are positioned, that sweet spot. Another great thing, which a lot of people don't understand, is it's the lack of rainfall. The lack of rainfall allows the vineyard owners to really precisely control how much water that fruit is getting, and that's really what helps. I've been told, and the wine experts, Andy out there, everybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm told that the reason that you get these variations in Bordeaux vintages is sometimes because they get too much rain. There's just too much rain. So the benefit of us is that we're down here, we're getting 6 to 8 inches. And I'm also told by the growers that if you add the drip irrigation that they use in order to properly control the water, that we're still giving the plants less than this 20 to 30 inches that they get in Bordeaux. So we've got this great location, this sweet spot. We've got the ability to control the rain. And then I won't go into detail about the soil, but the soil from the Missoula floods is really what gives a lot of the character to a lot of the expression we get from the grapes. I'm going to shift gears a little bit from this slide and talk a little bit about the economic impact. We heard some snippets of it before. If you want this data, I'm happy to shout it from the rooftops or give it to anybody who wants it. Just send me an email. You can find my email address on the website, washingtonwine.org, and I'll be happy to send this data to you. But we just completed in 2011 data an economic impact study, and this is all in-state data. Obviously the impact outside the state is much larger, but within our own state is what I want to focus about, because that's what you care about. We had a total estimated economic impact of $8.6 billion. Now, the last time that we did this study was 2007. In 2007, the total economic impact from the wine industry was $3 billion. So we went from $3 billion in 2007 to $8.6 billion in 2011. Now, assuming that we don't change anything we're doing and we just keep going the same way we're going, which, of course, my job is to change that bend and do even better. But let's just assume we just kept doing what we're doing now. We would get in 5 years to $14 billion, and by 2020, more than $20 billion of total economic impact. And I tell you, this data is making people sit up and take notice, because this proves that we're the diamond in the rough. We're that undiscovered gold that is going to really take this economy forward. We mentioned before around 30,000 jobs, wine-related jobs, wages $1.2 billion annually within the state. I think is another key. So not only are we generating this tremendous economic impact, we're providing jobs and salaries to people. Also the taxes, which I love to talk about this in Olympia every chance I get. Almost $250 million in taxes paid to the tax revenue to the state government that we should be going back and saying, hey, let's reinvest some of this in projects such around Red Mountain or different wine-related projects. Visitors has really been going up, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the past. But wine tourism is really starting to catch fire, and it's something that I think we have a real opportunity to talk about. I met with Chris this morning, and when we're talking about what are ways that we can work together so that we can make sure that tourism and wine tourism are working hand in hand, that we're aligned. Because I tell you what, nothing's better than going into a winery and just sitting down and meeting the winemaker and the winemaker's dog and just enjoying a great glass of wine on a beautiful day. I mean, who doesn't love that? It's just a wonderful experience. And then also the tourism spending, funny enough, was estimated at $1.1 billion. So as more and more people discover Washington wine country, they discover the quality of Washington wines, this number is going to continue to grow exponentially. Because they're going to go home and tell 2 friends, and they're going to tell 2 friends. And before you know it, you guys are going to not have enough rooms. So also, just as an example, we broke down the economic impact study by the different counties. This is an example from Benton County alone of that economic impact study, close to $1 billion, somewhere around 5,000 jobs related to the wine industry. This is real money going to the economy. Now I'm going to shift gears a little bit, talk a little bit about some market statistics, and then what we're planning to do as the Wine Commission to support the grape growers and the winemakers and the wineries within the state. Funny enough, you can't turn on the TV or listen to the radio or anything without hearing about the economy. Is there going to be a double dip recession? Are we going into a depression? You know, the subprime. You hear just nothing but bad economic information. But the wine industry in the U.S. has had growth for 18 consecutive years. So there's a couple of messages in there. First of all, people love to drink wine, and they'll drink wine whether the economy's up or down, which is a good thing, right? So whether you're drinking wine because you're happy, you're drinking wine because you're sad, you're still drinking wine. But it also shows you that there is an opportunity within the U.S. to really create a wine culture. And I'll talk a little bit about that when you go down in the lower left, my bullet points there. The U.S. is now the #1 wine-consuming nation in the world. We are the #1. We're number one. We're number one. You know, it's like we're #1 wine-consuming nation in the world. But, and there's a big but there, in the sense that we only consume 3 gallons of wine per capita per year. 3 gallons of wine. To put that in perspective, Europe is around 10 to 13 gallons per year. So you guys all need to drink more wine. You're not doing your part. You got 10 more gallons to drink per year. Can I get a commitment today to drink 10 more gallons per year? There we go. We got some applause up front. So, great opportunity. Drink more wine. A little bit of research here. Now, when I arrived at the commission, our primary target audience was the consumer. We were doing a lot of consumer events, getting out, spreading the good word about Washington wine, which at that time in our evolution was appropriate. But now that we're starting to see this exponential growth, we wanted to shift our strategy a bit and focus on the influencers. And when we look at the wine industry, we think about trade. So trade is restaurant owners, they're wholesalers, retailers, sommeliers. You go into a restaurant and say, hey, what do you recommend? They say, hey, I recommend this great Washington wine. So those are the trade area. We also are focusing on media. Now, the reason we shifted that is we believe that we get much more leverage by influencing the influencers. So everything I'm about to share with you from now is part of our new strategy, our new 5-year plan going forward, which is around our primary target and what is our strategy for the next 5 years. Our primary target being #1 trade, #2 media. So we did some preliminary market research, and this one is called a word cloud, and the bigger the word, the more often that word came up. When we asked the trade, this is just trade data, when we asked the trade, what do you think when you think of Washington State wine? And so you can see 2 words pop out there right away. One of them is balance, and the other one is value. Now, you know, those aren't bad to have, but they're not necessarily what we feel we should be known as on the global wine scene. So one of the reasons is because they just have this lack of familiarity, and that's where the commission comes in and raising that awareness. The other one is this lack of distribution, which we're also working with wineries on identifying target markets both nationally and also internationally so that we can create these relationships so that we can get more distribution into more markets within the nation and also globally. So I've already talked about leading the way with that. So when we stepped back, we said, what is it we want them to say? When we sit that same group of trade people down, and 5 years from now, a year from now, whenever, what is it we really want them to say about Washington State wine? And superior and quality are 2 things that we feel the data strongly supports that is there for Washington State wine. We've clearly got the data that shows the quality's there. We've got the data that shows the superiority's there. Let's push that through and really drive those messages home with those people who are writing about Washington State wine, who are recommending wines in the restaurants, who are buying wines for wholesalers and retailers. But you also see that the balance and value is still there. It's still very important, but we don't necessarily want that to be the 2 primary attributes that we're looking for. So that leads me to my final slide, and then depending on what sign I get from Heather in the back about Q&A, we did come up with a strategic plan. Now this is just 1 slide out of 50 slides. It's much more detailed. I'm actually working with a graphics team on how I can make this data available on the website and also as leave behinds. Unfortunately, that didn't get done in time for this discussion, but I'm willing to talk to anybody about this anytime. This is something I get really excited about. So we started with our vision, and we've been in place 25 years now, and we've really not had a clearly defined vision. And part of that was just because we were so new and we couldn't decide what we were going to do, and the second part was because we do so many things so well. Really, it was a challenge on what do we gravitate towards. When you think Oregon, you think Pinot Noir. When you think Napa, you think Cab. When you think Australia, you think Shiraz, you know, for example. What did we want Washington, you know, people to think when they thought of Washington? So we started out with a vision. And of course, with that, you can go all the way and say, well, we want to be known for our Merlots because we make the best Merlots. Maybe. We want to be known for Syrah because we make the best Syrah. Well, yeah, we could make that argument. But do you want to pin your reputation or top-of-mind thinking with trade and media on a single varietal. On the other end of the spectrum, we do everything great. That's a hard message to get across to trade and media. You know, we do everything great. First of all, people don't believe that. You know, second of all, they can't really write about that. So we came up with a vision and we said, okay, imagine you guys are all trade and media primary target. What do I want you to say or think in 5 years? What do I want you to parrot back to me? And it's really the vision that we have this reputation for premium wines with superior quality across a range of varietals. So we capture the fact that we do things well. We're not saying we do everything well, but we got this range of varietals that, yeah, you know what? I feel real comfortable taking my wine in a blind taste up against anything France or California or anyone else has to offer, because we've got that superior quality and we've got this range of varietals that we do it well. And also a distinct character exhibiting a unique balance of the old world and the new world. Now let me back up a little bit on the distinct character piece. Distinct character applies to the wines, yes. We do have distinct characters. You ask some of our wine experts here, you know, Andy will tell you, yeah, he can taste Washington. When he tastes wine, he can taste Washington. We do have a distinct character. But this distinct character actually applies to you as well. It applies to the winemakers. It applies to what the state has to offer. It applies to the fact that we've got this unique bunch of incredibly enthusiastic and dedicated growers out here, and also winemakers that went all in with their chips. You know, they may be on working part-time because they can't make enough on the wine yet, but they're going out there and they're doing it. So we have this really unique set of distinct characters, literally characters within the industry, that really make us what we are. And when you go to California and they see how unified we are as an industry, it's really, they're blown away that we actually, during crush, during harvest, that we're actually lending equipment to what they would view as a competitor. But we view it as part of the family, as this unified. So it is part of our distinct character and something we want to hold on to. And then this balance of old world and new world really relates to how the wines are made and the quality of the wines. It's a great balance, and this really resonates well with the trade and the media. Remembering that trade and media are our targets. I wouldn't probably use this same messaging with the consumer, but the trade and media, they get it. I mean, for the consumer, the way I think of Washington wine is no matter who you are, no matter what you like, Washington makes the perfect wine for you. It does. Every one of you, if you're a wine drinker, you can find the perfect Washington wine for you. There's no need to go to California or anywhere else. It's here. It's in your backyard. The goals I'll skip. We can go into more detail if you want, but I want to move this along. It's really the next part, which is the 4 main strategic pillars. 70% of our effort is on increasing awareness with trade and media, and not just within our state, which is important, but really within the nation. So New York City is a kind of a hub of wine writers, food writers, leisure writers. The Bay Area, we're also overseas. In London, we're also talking to people in Germany and Frankfurt. But basically just getting out there on that global scene and raising the awareness and say, hey, listen, you need to taste this stuff in Washington. This stuff's awesome. And get them out here. That's a big thing too, is that we try and get them out here to experience this part of Washington and to experience our wine and our people. The other part, strength and industry unity, is something that I personally am responsible for. The way that we've organized the team, I have a team of 10, including myself. I've got 7 people working on that first strategic pillar. The other 3 are mine, and I've got 1 person to help me out because I feel so dedicated to that, and I think it's so important that we maintain our identity, that we strengthen our industry unity, that we have regular meetings with Heather. I see Heather out there, and all the other regional associations to say, how can we work together? How can we all go the same direction? Right now we've got roughly 25 regional associations, and that's just including the wine ones. Now if you add the CVBs and everything else, it's quite a lot to work with, but it's important and it's my primary responsibility. Wine tourism development. Wow, what an opportunity. I mean, we have this tremendous opportunity to build infrastructure around wine tourism, to create these what I call wine adjacencies. So lodging, spas and resorts, places where you can go get food and cheese. Anyone who's been to Napa knows that you can go there and you can stop by the Oakville Market and you can pick up some nice cheese, you can pick up some nice meats, and you can go and have a nice picnic at a vineyard. And you can stay in a nice hotel and you can go to a nice restaurant. I had a chance to meet Thomas Keller, I think a week and a half ago, from the French Laundry. We need a French Laundry type restaurant that in and of itself is an attraction, is a draw. But if we can put all that together, have the right kind of combination, and we're going to have a real winning, because we've got everything else. We've got everything else. It's a matter of bringing it together. The other investment I would make in the wine tourism, I talked about it the other day, is around transportation infrastructure. So we need to support that and make sure that people know where the wineries are, know where the vineyards are, and can get there, and we make it as easy as possible. That's a huge, huge thing. You drive down the highway, and if you didn't know any better, you're passing all these wonderful opportunities to meet these winemakers and these vineyard owners. The other one, support education and research, which is a big, big opportunity. More strategic, more longer term, but if we want to be known as a premier wine-growing region in the world, we need to be able to support that pipeline of talent. We need to have a UC Davis, level of expertise in our own backyard where we can just pump out expert after expert and take what we have, which is already really good, and take it to the next level. That requires investment. That requires dedication. I just signed a memorandum of understanding for $7.4 million for the Wine Science Center. The governor chipped in another $5 million, so we're going to get that, moving forward. And with that, I'm just going to move on to Rick Small's head. That's Rick Small on the left. In case you don't know the back of his head, Rick Small is Woodward Canyon. It's just a photo I had laying around I thought was pretty unique because I love the expression on that lady's face. She's just loving it. So if you remember anything else, remember how important the wine industry is to the economy now and how important it will be in the future. Drink more wine. Drink a lot more wine than you're drinking now. And support, get out to the wineries. And I'll tell you what really cemented it for me, and just my closing kind of thought. I've been a wino. Let's just face it, I've been a wino for a while. I'm not going to say a wine connoisseur or anything. I've been a wino. In the marketing, we call it a core consumer. I just drank a lot of wine. That's the truth. And I really didn't know at the time how much you could enjoy a bottle of wine. Once you met the winemaker, once you met the vineyard person, it adds a whole nother level of appreciation and experience to that. So if you haven't made the effort to go out and visit these guys, go visit them. I mean, you will never look at that bottle of wine the same again. I promise you that. So thank you very much for your attention. Appreciate it.
I think we've got time for a couple of questions for Steve. Anyone have anything you'd like to ask? We're here. No, anybody but Andy. No, Andy had a question. Yes, sir.
You talked about 30% market share. You can never get to 100% because of the low end market that Washington doesn't have. What would be your hope and expectation for market share?
Yeah, the question was, we're at 30% market share in our own state. And Andy said, what's our expectation on what we can do? I tried modeling that. You know how difficult it is to model how you're going to grow your market share within your state versus the nation versus globally, because every winery has a different business model. But I tell you, honestly, all of the major wine-growing regions, and you can challenge me on this, I have no source for it, but from what I'm told, the major wine-growing regions of the world around there have usually 70% market share and up. They support local. You go out to Bordeaux, they're not drinking Spanish wines, they're not drinking Napa Valley wines, they're drinking local wines. California, I bet you'd be up around the 70% market as well. I would hope that we could get to 70% market share locally. I would hope that we could get there. I give another kind of analogy when I'm talking about this because I am so frustratedly passionate about it. It's kind of like, because our quality's there, we're kicking everybody's butt when it comes to quality, frankly. We go to, let's just assume that the Seahawks are going to the Super Bowl. And we're going to CenturyLink Field. It's being played, well, yeah, nobody laugh. I just bought tickets from my uncle, so please don't laugh. Let's just imagine, let's fantasize. How about that? Let's fantasize that the Seahawks go to the Super Bowl again, and it's played in CenturyLink Field, right? and you go into the stadium and you're wearing your nice Seahawk jersey and your face is painted up and you got your big old #1 sign, you walk into CenturyLink Field and 7 out of 10 people in the audience are wearing the other team's jersey. How would that make you feel? And I feel the same way about Washington Wines. I think we need to flip that. I think we need at least 70% market share. Got to give people the freedom to choose other wines.
Got, Leo?
Dave, one of your slides indicated there was 0.005 cents per pound assessment. Is that correct? For your agency, is that correct for marketing? What does it compare to California? What do they charge? What do they?
You know, that's a good question. I don't know what California charges. I know that California is a private, the California Wine Institute. Do you know what they charge, Andy?
Oregon's about 4 times as much.
Oregon's about 4 times as much, I'm told. But I don't know. I don't really know at California. I'm supposed to go down there and visit with those folks in the future. It's just I wanted to really focus on getting over on this side as much as possible first. But you're correct. It's about ½ cent per pound assessment. So assuming that you're using 2.5 pounds per bottle of wine, it ends up being about $150 per 1,000 case winery. Yeah. Yes, sir.
What's your top priorities in promoting wine tourism, and how do you decide where to allocate your dollars to increase that tourism for the wine business?
Yeah, you know, the question was where do we prioritize tourism, and where are we going to put our money? How are we going to allocate the funding? We've already done that, actually. Of our budget, we're allocating a little under 10% towards tourism. And it's not, there's a lot of overlap. Let me put it to you that way. When we bring, for example, we have a program called Road Trip Washington, where we bring some of the top trade from around the country, and we bring them here during harvest. We have them roll up their sleeves, get dirty, participate in harvest for over a week, and we spend a lot of money bringing them there. Is that tourism? We don't put it in tourism. We put it in more marketing and awareness. My primary effort on the tourism part, and I'll just back up a slide here, is really around these partnerships. Having me, the wine guy, the paid wine guy. I know you're the wine guy, but I'm the paid wine guy. So having me at the table for these big discussions, raising my hand and saying, hey, let's include wine tourism, let's work together. It's more about the partnerships. I already worked very, very closely, as an example, on Taste Washington with the Seattle CVB. It was an excellent partnership the first time we ever did it. We expanded the format from a single day to 2 days. Basically, the Seattle CVB put heads in beds, as they like to say in that area. They put heads in beds, and we focused on the winery coordination and the education component. So now we're going to say, well, how can we expand that? Can we make it a week-long event, starting on Monday and ending like a Super Bowl week, and ending with the big event on the weekend? So it's more about the coordination, the partnership, and less about the actual real investment. Because those dollars are actually, again, we're not targeting consumers. Those dollars are going more into the wine writers, the leisure writers, the food writers, who are going to put an article in Sunset Magazine. Some of you may have seen the article in Sunset Magazine. And the consumer is going to open that and say, hey, you know, I need to get to Washington. This sounds pretty cool. And so it's more from the trickle-down effect and making sure that we've got good coordination at the decision-making level.
A lot of hands.
Yeah.
John?
You decide.
John.
Historical footnote. I moved up here in 1972, and at that time, Johannesburg Riesling from San Michel was being served in the White House.
Yeah.
That was getting our best foot out there, really. The question that the Costco initiative of the closure of the Washington State liquor stores, what kind of an impact is that going to have? It's early yet. I haven't even thought.
Yeah. Well, first of all, your first part of your comment was about Riesling, and actually that was kind of a double-edged sword, because we had become known as the Riesling state, and Riesling is viewed typically as kind of a colder climate type wine, sweeter wine, and we did it very well. And as a matter of fact, I think we're somewhere around producing 70% of the Riesling in the U.S. now, somewhere around those numbers. So that was a bit of a double-edged sword. It was a great start. It put us on the map. I believe it was a tasting in California that actually where the Riesling won, and really we took off from there. So it was very important for us, but it was also kind of a double-edged sword. The other question was, how's it going with 1183? also known as the Costco Initiative. We had all hands on deck. People were worried the sky was going to fall. All kinds of horror stories, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. It hasn't really come to fruition for the most part. I've only had one person come up to me and say, you know, it's really impacted me. I tell you who it's impacted people who like hard liquor, because not only can they can't find what they like, and then what they're finding, it has more taxes on it than any other state in the U.S. So it's really impacted them. I see a lot of heads nodding. So your gin's more expensive, your vodka's more expensive.
No more. Another reason, drink more wine.
Drink more wine. Drink more. I'm going to have you guys chanting that. Yeah, and you know what was funny is everybody's concern is it would be just the opposite. People were saying, you know, the liquor stores kind of had this aura of you didn't want to see going into one or coming out of one with a package, you know, a brown package, you know. So you know, there was this concern that now that it was so accessible in the grocery store that you'd go down, yo, eggs, milk, fifth of liquor, you know, and it just would be so much more accessible and easier and not so shady as going into a state-controlled liquor control board or liquor store. It hasn't really come to fruition. We haven't seen a lot of the data, and I think part of the reason is, you know, a lot of the guys who were the bigger guys, they were already kind of in that Costco environment and really kind of negotiating and all that. In our state, we have about 750 wineries. About 700 wineries make up 10% of the volume. 700 of the wineries make up 10% of the volume. These aren't guys that are in Costco for the most part. These are guys that are selling wine at their tasting room, on their mailing lists. You know, they're doing, or maybe one or two accounts. They're targeting restaurants. They're not necessarily at a point where they're targeting Costco. I did talk to Rob Griffith, for example. He was concerned because his number 3 buyer was actually the liquor stores, liquor control board. So, but my personal feeling, coming from more of a business background, is the markets will right themselves. People will find a way to get through it, and I think we'll be fine. And the reason I say that is because the quality's there. If the quality wasn't there, I think we'd be in trouble. But the bar has been established very, very high. I, for example, will just change the way I buy wine. I'm still going to go out and buy wine. So should you.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. That was a great presentation, and you know, I thought it was a wonderful comment about getting to know the winemakers and the wineries. The Chamber certainly wants to reach out to the Wine Commission and the industry in general and help you tell that story and tell our local winemakers' story. So thank you very much for that. I was scanning the room, and I didn't see any winemakers here, so not that that's a bad thing, but in fact it's maybe a good thing, because I was really intrigued with your slide about the Wine Spectator, the ratings, and the value. And from the perspective of someone who likes to buy Washington wine, could we not share that with the winemakers? You know, just like keep that quiet, you know, because really we're getting a great deal here, and it's a real blessing, I think, for us to live here in the Columbia Valley. Okay, once again, we'd like to thank Pacific Crest Planning for sponsoring our luncheon today. Our Member Connections partner, Bucksbaum Family Chiropractic. The Red Lion for hosting us today. Our speaker, Steve Warner, the Washington Wine Commission. Charter Communication in the back, as always, filming and rebroadcasting this program. And to all of you for attending today's luncheon. Thank you all for attending today, and remember, it's good business to do business with Tri-Cities Regional Chamber members. Thanks.